Hey guys, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I talk about deck lists for 60 card Magic, especially casual ones. Right now we're going to be talking about one of my Epic on a Budget decks. So basically it's a really nice deck that you can get for $20-ish. I go off of TCG player prices. Here the Architect pulls and make sure this total cost is under $20. $20 or less. And if you click on the link in the description, it will likely default to another price option. So you can just change them right here. Card Kingdom tends to be significantly more, but I go off TCG player. So anyways, hopefully that works out for you. That's what we're going to be talking about. Today we're going to be talking about Elves. So Elves is a pretty cool tribe with a decent amount of support. And I'm pretty excited to show you all this. So here we go. We have basically just a bunch of elves and lands. A little bit of removal, because you got to have removal. And Genesis Wave. So this is what the deck is kind of built around, is Genesis Wave. If you're not familiar with it, basically it just lets you dump a bunch of cards from your library onto the battlefield. You have to pay X triple green, and you reveal the top X cards of your library. You can put any permanents from among those if onto the battlefield as long as they have mana value X or less. Okay, and then the rest go into your graveyard. So you'll notice that most of the cards here have mana value of 3 or less. So as long as X equals 3, you should be able to get most things, and most things are permanents. We only have 8 non-permanents in the deck. So as long as X equals 3, you should be able to get at least 2 things onto the battlefield. The goal, though, of course, is to have X equal a lot more than 3. So let's show the mana curve here. Okay, so basically here are just plain lands. Okay, we do have more lands, double-sided lands. We'll get to that in a second. Lair of the Hydra is a really nice land for our purposes because we can dump a bunch of mana into it to make it a very large creature. One weakness of a deck like this is board wipes. If we get board wiped, we're a little sad. But say you play Genesis Wave for, X equals 10. You get a bunch of elves, a bunch of lands onto the battlefield. You're like, wow, this is awesome. I'm about to win. Your friend goes, ooh, nice. Day of Judgment. Destroy all creatures. Understandably, you'll be a little bit sad. However, if Lair of the Hydra is one of those lands you have at that point, then on your turn, you can just use all your other lands to make this a fairly good-sized Hydra and swing in. So that's a little bit of board wipe protection, honestly. That's the main use for that. You can, of course, use it in other ways. Since it doesn't have any sort of evasion, no trample or anything like that, and we don't actually have a way to give it evasion in this deck, it's not going to be useful like all the time, even though it can be pretty big because it can just be chump blocked. Okay, and generally we just have better things to do with our mana. If you don't, of course, feel free. Okay, and of course, good old forests. Next up, we have Elvish Mystics and Llanowar Elves. Classics. You just got to get green mana. Okay, and Elves. All right, now it gets a little bit more interesting. 2 mana, we have Priest Titania is absolutely bonkers. For 2 mana, you get a 1/1 elf that taps for green equal to the number of elves on the battlefield. Importantly, this is one of those old cards that cared about what your opponent had. Most of the time, that won't make any difference. However, occasionally your friend will be running an Elvish Mystic or a Llanowar Elf or some other elf. And you'll say, oh, thank you for adding to my mana. So that's nice. And that can get kind of crazy. With all these elves, you can tap that for a lot pretty quickly. Elvish War Master. This one is a really good card just to kind of add value to everything we do, like everything. Because whenever an elf enters the battlefield under your control, you get a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token, and this ability triggers only once each turn. So you get one. You can get one per turn, but that's actually pretty significant, especially because there actually is a way to get an elf on your opponent's turn, so you can get like 2 per turn cycle. But generally, you'll just be getting 1 per turn cycle. That's still pretty good. Just an extra elf for essentially free is nice. It's also a really good way to finish the game or like break an awkward board stall because at some point you might just have extra mana and need to get through a bunch of other creatures or something like that. Or just make it so they can't really attack into you. You can pay 7 to give all your elves +2/+2 and Death Touch until end of turn. That's pretty nice. Sometimes you actually activate that multiple times in a turn because you have just so much mana. Okay. Next up, we have Elvish Clan Caller. This is really nice because it just gives all your elves +1/+1. You'll see that effect a few times in this deck. And also has the ability to search up another copy of this same card. So you can pay 6 and tap it to search for another Elvish Clan Caller, put it directly onto the battlefield, and then shuffle. That's really nice because sometimes you have extra mana, run out of cards maybe, and want to keep building our board state. That's a great way to do it. And it just makes all your elves bigger, which is really nice. Okay, and Bite Down. This one just deals damage to a creature or planeswalker equal to the power of a creature you control at instant speed. So it's pretty nice. Okay, now we get to Elvish Archdruid. This is a lot like Priest of Titania in that it taps for each elf you control. So it's slightly different because it doesn't count your opponent's elves. But generally speaking, it'll be pretty much the same. However, for that extra mana you're investing into it, you get a slightly beefier creature and an anthem effect. So all your other elves get +1/+1. That's very useful. Okay, Imperious Perfect. This one, it again just gives all your other elves +1/+1. And the other ability is very, very helpful too. You don't always use it, but it's really nice if you run out of cards, especially. But you can pay 1 and tap it to create a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token. Ta-da! Okay, just like Elvish War Master, same token. Okay. One nice thing about this is you can use that on your opponent's turn. So like you can play an elf on your turn, and then you can use this ability on your opponent's turn to maximize Elvish War Master, because then you'll get an elf warrior on your turn and your opponent's turn from Elvish War Master. Okay, and of course it just pumps all your elves, which is very nice. Makes them all a little bit bigger. Reclamation Sage. I always like to include some artifact enchantment removal, if possible, into each deck. And especially if it can fit the theme. So here's an elf. When it enters, you may destroy target artifact or enchantment. That's pretty nice. It doesn't really do a whole lot else for us besides be an elf. So sometimes it'll just be an elf, but other times it'll be exactly what you need to take care of whatever your opponent's playing. Okay. Next up, we have Dwynen, Guiltleaf Dane. Okay. 4 mana. It's a legendary. I only have 2 because it's a legendary. Honestly, it's the biggest reason. But it has reach, which is nice. It's actually the only thing in the whole deck that has reach. And it also pumps all your creatures. So other elf creatures you control get +1/+1. But the other nice thing is that when it attacks, you gain 1 life for each attacking elf you control. That honestly doesn't come up all the time as being super, super helpful. But when it does, it'll just save your life. So that's kind of nice. All right. The next one is actually I think, one of the best cards in the deck. Disciple of Freyalise. Like, all the other ones are ridiculously good, of course, many of them. Um, this one is just like really, really epic in a unique sort of way because it's a land on the back that you can have enter untapped if you pay 3 life. Otherwise, it just enters tapped. Okay, so provide some consistency that way. But on the front side is a 3/3 elf that costs 6 mana. But when it enters, you can sacrifice another creature. And if you do, you gain X life and draw X cards, where X is that creature's power. That is really, really, really good for our deck for 2 reasons. One is it can just refill your hand when you're done casting all of these fairly low mana value elves, especially because you have a lot of mana from Priest of Titania, Elvish Archdruid, even these. Okay, so you can run out of cards. That's one thing it does. And with all of the everything gets +1, +1, +1, +1, +1, +1. You don't have to sacrifice a very important creature. You often end up sacrificing either like an Elvish Mystic or Line of War Elf, or honestly, a lot of times you just sacrifice a token from Elvish War Master or Imperious Perfect. Okay, and you can draw like 4 to 6 cards pretty easily, just sacrificing one of these creatures. Okay, but I think the more important thing it does is provide very nice board wipe protection. So as long as you Genesis Wave for X equals 6, then you can hit one of these. When it enters the battlefield, you just sacrifice another creature. And you can, like I said, often draw, 5-ish cards, 4 to 6 cards. It's pretty easy. And gain some life. And then if your opponent board wipes you, you have cards to rebuild with. Oftentimes, you can just play another Genesis Wave. That's not unheard of. But otherwise, you can just start playing out Elves again. And that's very valuable. And the life does give you a little bit of cushion too. So this is a super important card, honestly. If you are looking to upgrade it, I would just start with putting 4 of these in and taking out Forest. The price didn't quite allow for it, but it's not much of an upgrade in price. Just it helps the consistency a decent amount. Okay, so I think we're ready to go for the playtester. Let's do it. Okay, so we have, this looks really good, actually. We have a couple of lands, we have a couple of early plays, and we have a couple of big mana elves, and we have a Genesis Wave. Like, if our opponent doesn't remove our elves, this is going to go really well. Okay, and that is one of the difficulties with playtesting decks, of course, is you don't know how much your opponent is going to remove. But we'll just see what this is like. So turn 1, play that. Turn 2, gonna get another elf, Elvish Archwood. Okay. Okay, now here is a really important interaction to keep in mind when you're doing your mana math. These elves that tap for green equal to your number of elves you have will give you more mana than if you cast elves or create elves before you tap them. So whether that's making tokens with Imperious Perfect or just casting Elves, oftentimes you actually get mana ahead. So if I have 2 Elvish Archdruids out, which I'm actually about to, see I just paid 3, and now this taps for 3 instead of just 2. If I have 2 Elvish Archdruids out, or Priest Titania, and ready to tap, because this is, is 7/6 right now. But if I have multiple, I can play an Elvish Mystic for 1 mana, and then get 2 more mana from my Elves. So you can often build your board state while ramping on that same turn that way. Okay, so we're gonna also play Elvish Mystic. Now this taps for 4. We're going to just play Imperious Perfect. Okay, now one nice thing is that this is a 4/4 because we have 3 of our anthem effects out. Okay, this is also 4/4. This is a 4/4. So they're all 4/4s. So that's it's turn 3, and we have 20 power on the board. That in of itself is actually pretty good. So, we could just start swinging, but that's not really our goal. Okay, so let's see. How much mana can we get? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Each of these taps for 5. So we'll get a total of 15. So this is turn 4. We have 15 mana, and we cast this for X equals 12. Okay. So we're going to say 12. Okay, so now we get to put into play all of the permanents. Okay, this unfortunately is going to go into a graveyard. That's fine. Okay. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that your library will get smaller very quickly if you aren't careful with this. Okay, so we have only 38 cards now. We're about to draw some. Let's see what happens. Now, we have 2 Elvish War Masters. Okay, so everything came in at the same time, so everything sees each other come in. That means Elvish War Masters see all the other ones come in and create Elf Warriors. Okay, so we're going to make a couple Elf Warriors. We're about to sacrifice them, but here they are. All right, now let's see how many anthem effects we have. I don't think we actually got any anthem effects in that Genesis wave. So we still have 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we have 3. So everything is getting +2/+3. I'm just going to sacrifice both these Elf Warriors to these 2 Disciples of Freyalise. Okay, and each one of those will gain me 4 life and draw me 4 cards. Okay, so we're going to go up to 28 and draw 8 cards. Alrighty, that's pretty good. Okay, and we're going to play a land for turn. And now we actually have 3 mana. We could, if there's something we need to remove on our opponent's board, we could easily use Bite Down for that. Otherwise, you can just cast that if you're not worried about board wipes. If you are worried about board wipes, I would definitely not do that because you don't actually need it. So whatever you feel like. Okay, we'll just pretend like there was something that I needed to remove on my opponent's board. So Bite Down. Okay, one interesting interaction is if you have Elvish War Master and enough mana, you can give all your creatures Death Touch, all your elves Death Touch, and then use Bite Down. And then it doesn't matter how big the creature is. Okay, so let's say we bite down something, and now we're down to 7 cards, so we don't have to discard anything. And we can pass the turn. Now, one cool thing is we do have a good number of blockers, like a lot of blockers. these are 6/6s right here. We took care of a artifact or enchantment if that was a thing. We've got some pretty good sized creatures here. And we also have now 6 lands on the battlefield, and we have a bunch of stuff in our hand ready to go if we get board wiped. Okay, so we just go next turn. Okay, it's pretty easy to see that with this setup, we would just win if we swung in, unless the opponent had some really crazy stuff. Okay, because each of these elves basically is getting +3/+3. You 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14. We could tap a Priest Titania for 14 mana and activate this ability twice and give everything +4/+4 and Death Touch. Just in case we needed it, right? You could also probably mill your entire deck out and put it all onto the battlefield by just tapping. Yeah, you totally could easily tapping your 4 big mana elves, casting Genesis Wave again. We don't want to do that. Like, this is probably enough, right? We have 14 elves. They each have a minimum of 4 power and toughness. We can probably just swing in and win. If that is not an option, like I said, make them bigger, and then they're all 8/8 elves. That should take care of it pretty quickly. So it's pretty clear we would most likely win without interaction. However, if our opponent does board wipe us, all these lovely things go to the graveyard. And now it's really grateful that we had the Disciples of Freyalise, because we can rebuild quickly. Okay, so say all those are on the battlefield in the graveyard now. We can just tap out and play. We want to play our elves tap for a lot of mana. Okay, and then let's see what we do here. So we have 7 plus 8 mana, so we have 11 mana right now. We could Genesis Wave for X equals 8, and that honestly might be the best idea. But we can also just tap and get creatures out, including 3 anthem effects, or 4 anthem effects, I mean. If I did it in the right order, I would have done Elvish War Master first, so we could get Elf Warrior. And then, so if we could bite something down if our opponent's played something that we need to get rid of. All right, we pass the turn. Okay. And now this is not enough to win the game, which it might or might not be. Okay, we have 4 anthem effects. Okay, we have some stuff going for us, right? We can just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And this is 6, so 15. Let's see. 8 plus 6 is 14. Okay, 14 mana. Alrighty. And then 14 mana. We could actually just leave the rest of this up and Genesis Wave for X equals 11, because that might do the trick. And then we could actually swing in with fairly large elves. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, so Genesis Wave for X equals 11. Okay, so we have another anthem. We have a Dwyn, and we're gonna just put that leave that in our graveyard because there's not really a lot of point. Okay, and our other Genesis Wave. It's going to go to the graveyard too. Okay, so now you have a bunch of land. The center's tapped. We have a bunch of land. We did not get another Disciple of Freyalise, but we did get another Elf Warrior from Elvish War Master. We get another Anthem effect. So now these 5 creatures could swing in for quite a bit. Oh, sorry. We got 2 Anthem effects. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 Anthem effects. So this is a 7/7. Okay, that's pretty good. This is getting +5, so it's 8 power. Okay, so we could probably just attack with these, and in a lot of situations, that would just win the game on the spot. Okay, if not, we have ways to keep going, right? Because we can, like, if we did actually get fogged or something, I don't know, something gross that our opponent does. You have ways of continuing to go. Like you could obviously just play Elvish Clan Caller. You could use this Elvish Clan Caller's ability to get another one. You could make them all bigger. You can make Elf Warriors. You have options for what to do. Okay. You could also make a large layer of the Hydra. Okay. So there's just lots of options to keep going, keep applying pressure, and rebuild even after a board wipe. Okay, because that is very important with a deck like this. Okay, and yeah, obviously, if the main weakness then really, since we've kind of protected ourselves from board wipes, is a lot of spot removal. Okay, if our opponent has a lot of spot removal, they'll target Priest Titanium and Elvish Archdruid like crazy. Okay, and then things aren't quite as easy for us, but you can still make it work. Okay, because you've got a lot of smallish elves. Like most of your stuff doesn't really cost a whole lot, and you do have some other ramp too. And you have a lot of anthem effects, so you can still effectively block and attack and whatnot, even with fairly low mana value creatures, even if a few of them get removed. And the magic number for Genesis Wave is X = 3. That's the minimum, because that will get almost everything in the deck. All but, of course, Genesis Wave, Bite Down, because those aren't really options anyway, and you won't get Disciple of Freyalise, which, of course, will be sad, but oh well. If it's something you need to use to build up your board a little bit, go for it. Okay, especially if you have multiples. But yeah, X = 4 will get. Oh, sorry, you won't get Dwayne either for X = 3, but X = 4 gets Dwayne in as well. This one really nice thing about Genesis Wave is that it's nice and scalable, and it can be used just to build up your board a little bit, especially if your big mana elves get removed. But it also serves as a win con. Okay. One thing I really like about this deck is that it does have a decent amount of resilience to a number of different things our opponent can do. Obviously, every deck has weaknesses still, like we've gone over, but it has a lot of things going for it. It has a very explosive way to win. And honestly, I think it's just a really fun way to win. Like dumping 14 cards onto the battlefield or 12 cards onto the battlefield, on turn 4. That's pretty cool. So I just think it's a ton of fun, and I think it's pretty effective, especially in a casual setting. A lot of people don't run enough removal to make it an issue. So, anyways, I think you'll really enjoy it. Please let me know if you do end up building this deck. Let me know how it goes. I'd love to know. Also, I will put the link in the description below so you can view this on Architect. And yeah, thank you so much for watching the video. If you've enjoyed it, please subscribe. I'll be doing more of these Epic on a Budget decks. So if you subscribe, you can find out about the next one. Should be coming out in a few days. So have a good one. Thank you so much. Ciao.